How's it going, everybody? Jordan here, and in today's video I'm going to go over a new amazing Kiss of Hades build. This build was brought to my attention by our lead Discord moderator Tetracycloid. We like to call him Tetracyclopedia because he knows everything about this game, and requires gear from the most recent Atlantis DLC episode 2 where you get Hades' axe. This build can melt better than my previous Kiss of Hades build. It looks like Hades, and best of all, it's made up of entirely legendary gear and should be easy to build. I'll also show you the awesome Hades transmog at the end of the video too, so be sure to check that out as well. As always, if you enjoy this video or you have any questions, be sure to join our Discord community or leave a like on this video. It helps out a lot. Let's get right into it. The Kiss of Hades build relies on the legendary Agamemnon set for its 100% burning rate. If you weren't aware, the burning rate perk increases how often enemies on fire get the fire damage tick, and when you wear this set you deal 2 times as much damage over time with fire than any other build. Match this set with the new Hades Executioner axe from the Atlantis DLC, and you can instantly catch your enemies on fire with almost no build-up perks. Now, it's important to take a moment to explain why Hades Executioner legendary perk is one of the best elemental perks in the game. Now, elemental buildup is what you use to ignite your enemies on fire, and crit chance now affects elemental buildup. They don't describe this effect very well, but after testing it myself and Tetracycloid testing it as well, it appears that what it does is it takes your regular crit chance and crit chance at full health and multiplies it to your elemental buildup with this perk. That means all you have to do now is make a regular crit build with more than 80% crit chance at full health and apply this legendary perk by either equipping the axe itself or engraving it, and it will multiply 80% crit chance or whatever crit chance you have to your buildup, and that's enough to instantly poison any enemy or catch them on fire with a critical hit. This includes mythical creatures. Look at this, you can ignite Sterops with 1 arrow with this perk on. Here's where this build gets even crazier. We also add to this the new legendary bow from the DLC called the Cursed Bow of Hades. The legendary perk of this bow is burning applies to nearby enemies. This means any enemy near a unit you ignite with the build will also ignite. There is some odd issues with this I noticed when it comes to civilians and conquest battles and who has aggro against you and who doesn't. It works best outside of those 2 situations when enemies and forts or leader camps are grouped together, but it does work a lot of the time. Essentially, it's a free multi-shot with this build because all you have to do is hit 1 single enemy and everyone in the group lights up and melts with the Agamemnon legendary set. You can shoot any mercenary once with this build and watch them die over time as well. It's a fully upgraded and twice as good Kiss of Hades set. The combination of these 2 weapons and the legendary Agamemnon set makes this build melt more enemies faster. You can instantly ignite enemies, and then that ignite spreads to enemies around them, and then the Agamemnon set melts them down to the ground. It's a bit of a glass cannon build, and you'll want to rely on your bow more times than not, but getting into the fray and using the new DLC abilities and the axe is also pretty fun. So don't worry, as long as you keep a distance and you engage the way you like to with this build, you'll notice that it's incredibly fun to play. Alright, let's get into the build details here. So obviously our primary weapon is going to be the Hades Executioner. Since damage over time with fire crits, we're going to want to get our crit damage as high as we can, so we're going to engrave crit damage onto it. Our secondary weapon is going to be the Hammer of Hephaestus, which is a legendary hammer that you can get from killing the mythical creature Argus. This gives us 40% fire damage, another 25% elemental damage, and then I engraved the Hammer of Horns engraving on there for another 30% fire damage. So this single item gives us a total of 95% fire damage, which will help with the damage over time tick. Like I mentioned before, our bow is the Cursed Bow of Hades from the DLC. This gives us fire damage again, and burning applies to nearby enemies, and then we're going to engrave the 10% crit chance. For the head, we're getting more fire damage, but we're going to go ahead and engrave crit chance while at full health. On the gauntlets here, we get some elemental buildup, which helps, but instead of engraving crit chance here, we're going to engrave 100% crit damage while at full health. Now, this build maxes out at 80% crit chance, but the reason we're doing this is because I want to get more crit damage out of it, and you notice that you'll deal more damage over time going this way versus 100% crit chance. So that's why we engraved that here. For the chest, we're going to engrave another 50% crit damage there. For the waist, again, instead of the crit chance, we're putting another 100% crit damage while at full health. So we're sacrificing a 20% crit chance for 200% crit damage, which I think is a very good exchange. And then finally on the boots, we have more fire damage and then crit chance while at full health engraving. All right, let's look at the abilities for this build. I used pretty much all DLC abilities, and they're incredibly fun to use. We have a hunter wheel and a warrior wheel. We'll start with the warrior wheel. Our primary ability is going to be flaming attacks. Obviously, we want to turn fire on for our bow and for our axe to instantly ignite our enemies. Our secondary ability, because we're a little hunter and a little bit warrior, is the Chronos Time Warp, which allows you to deal additional headshot damage and slows time down, so you're launching fire arrows and instantly igniting enemies on fire. Our third ability is going to be the Chronos Time Shift, which is a variation of the Vanish ability, which allows you to jump into the air, ignite an enemy on fire, and then slam the ground down. Basically, it's a really good disengage ability. Because this isn't a super tanky build, using the Vanish ability to escape a group of enemies and then shoot one of them and ignite them all on fire beneath you and then slam the floor to launch them away is a great way to disperse them, and it's honestly really fun to play with. And then our last DLC ability is going to be Ares' Last Breath, which is kind of like a battle cry of Ares ability. Essentially, you don't take any damage, you get to recover all your health back, and you deal a lot more damage as well because of this fact. So it's a really good health regen kind of ability, especially as a warrior if you want to use the axe and get some health back. On the hunter side of things, we use Predator Shot. So a lit Predator Shot from a distance will catch any unit on fire and they will melt because they're far enough distance from you. It's a way for you to also ignite a group of enemies from a distance without them seeing you, so it's really fun to play. Secondly, there's Multi-Shot. This is really good for conquest battles, for lighting multiple people on fire. Sadly, I was trying to use Multi-Shot to be kind of like a virus thing where groups around each person that you shot with Multi-Shot also lit on fire, and it happened a couple times in conquest battles, but I wasn't able to replicate it perfectly. But maybe you're able to get what I'm going for. But Multi-Shot is always a great ability to have. And then lastly, I added Ghost Arrows of Artemis because of the instant fire and the group stuff. So you could shoot a sleeping leader behind the wall with all of his guards around him, and they will all light on fire and melt and die without knowing who hit them. So that's really cool and really fun to do as well. All right, let's look at the masteries for this build. Again, as always, if you don't have as many points as I do, don't worry about it. Just focus on the primary ones. And the primary ones are going to be in the hunter tree. You're going to want to put as many points into crit chance as you can and crit damage. And then on the assassin tree, I went ahead and maxed out crit chance at full health and crit damage while at full health. After those four categories, you can put some points into damage while at full health, some adrenaline in order to get more adrenaline back to use some of these abilities. Damage on elites and bosses is another way to get more damage out. And then on the warrior side of things, maybe put a few points into damage with heavy bladed weapons because you have the axe, but it's not really needed because it's honestly a bit more of a ranged set for sure. And then you're going to want to put as many points as you can into fire damage, maybe some armor penetration, and damage dealt restored as health. Finally, since this is a hunter build, if you have the additional points, putting them into things like hunter damage, headshot damage, and adrenaline on headshot kill will also be sure to help you with getting more damage out with your arrows. Alright, let's look at the stats for this build. So one of the craziest things that we'll look at here is we've got an 80% crit chance at full health. Again, this applies to critting, which is for damage over time, and it multiplies to your elemental buildup. And when it does crit, it deals 475% damage. The reason I pulled back the 20% crit chance is because we could have had 100% crit chance, but we only would have been dealing 275% chance. So that means we just reduce a little bit of crit chance and we get almost twice as much damage out of it, and it ends up working out better in the long run. Then as you can see here on the elemental modifiers, we have an insane 315% fire damage, which is where all the melting comes from. And then also there's a 35-second duration for they are burning for over 30 seconds. This will kill any enemy over time except for maybe mythical creatures. But now imagine the 80% chance being multiplied against the fire buildup. This is what makes for it instantly igniting any enemies you have. So that's really insane to me on the stats end of things. Finally, I promised I'd show you the transmog. So obviously our head transmog is going to be the Crown of Hades, which is what you get from the DLC. For the gauntlets, what you're going to want to do is look for this plated vambraces. There's another one that has kind of like these little tassels popping out. That's not the one you want. You want the other one. You're going to want the adorned silver version. It kind of reflects and looks like the arms that Hades has. It's not perfect, but it works. For the chest, you're going to want the Dusk Herald's garment, which I believe is a Helix Store epic item. And then for the waist, you're going to want to do the Weight of War, which is the Spartan Renegade waist. And then that's going to be the same thing for the boots, the Blood Waders, which is also the Spartan Renegade boots. And with that, you'll be able to look as close to Hades as you possibly can with his axe, making this a really fun, well-rounded build. Thank you so much for watching this build video. I had so much fun with all the new gear and all the new abilities from this most recent DLC. If you don't have the DLC and you've been considering getting it, if you really like what you saw in this video, I would suggest you actually try to reach out and get this Atlantis DLC. The abilities and the gear you get with it are so fun, and they add such a new aspect to the game that I think it really is a pretty fun and a pretty good DLC, especially with all the new legendary perks. Now, I do plan to make a bunch of build videos or even showcase videos going over the new legendary gear that you get, especially the weapons. There's tons of new legendary perks. There's ones that with poison, there's ones with damaging groups of enemies, there's ones that make your tamed animals ignite people on fire, and it's just so much that I'm gonna try to wrap my brain around it and segment it and turn it into videos that I want to do. So hopefully you'll enjoy those. Maybe you can give me your suggestions on if you want that information delivered in build videos or maybe an overall DLC legendary gear video. So we'll check that out. But thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you. You can always subscribe and hit the bell for more Assassin's Creed Odyssey content if you haven't already, and leave your questions in the comments or join our Discord in the description of this video. There's always tons of people there willing to help anyone out. So thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next time.
So proud of those born to be smart.